Today, uh, and the past couple days, I've been kind of looking into starting a series on logical fallacies, argument types, and abuses of logic. So the reason why I want to do that is because it helps us find truth or be able to synthesize somebody's position, some claims that they're doing, and be able to pick them apart or know if they're trying to, say something that isn't exactly true, or helps us discern, okay, what's good and what's not. It just gives another filter, another tool set that we can have to help us move throughout the world and, kind of do the mental jujitsu of finding truth and pursuing wisdom. Okay, that's one thing. And so this first video is going to be about dialectic versus debate. Dialectic, you have two people, or more, two people, but you have one that makes a claim, the other that picks something within that claim that might not be true, using the meta model, because you can all trace it back to the meta model or what have you, okay? They can all trace it back to the meta model. And so somebody would come up with a claim. Socrates would ask, so when we think about this particular word or in relation to this, is that always true? Is this, or this, that, or this, is this true when this is, blah, 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 and they're just trying to refute. Refute is how you get to purification, is how you get closer and closer and closer to the idea of truth. Right? Because then you're like, oh, okay, it's not that, it's not this, 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 it's not that, it's not that, nah, and then eventually you get closer and closer and closer to something that might be true. Now, from where we started to here, that's a huge difference, okay? You can, the whole process of refining gold is taking all the other crap out, okay? Before we get a solid bar of something that's incredibly valuable. From tons and tons of ore to a gold bar, it's all about taking what is not gold out. Refutation is how you get to the purity of truth, or purity of the concept or idea that we're talking about. The absolute, subjective, the absolute. Just to say the absolute, and we get closer and closer and refine it more and more, and that's how we pursue it. That's awesome. If that's what we're pursuing, that's how we become wise, that's how we pursue truth. Awesome. Now, debate. Socrates was the wisest man. Let's just say that he was a champion in the realm of dialectic. He's also pretty good in debate. He had great arguments, or you could say, in terms of comparison to his contemporaries, he had the best arguments. He was the closest to being truth, closest in comparison to everybody else of getting and obtaining truth. He lost. He lost because debate is not about pursuing truth. It's about being right. It's about winning. So if it's all about winning, and you know that engaging in fallacies, engaging in things that aren't true, engaging in things that appeal to the audience and that are not exactly the most wisest principle, or may challenge the audience, destroys the audience sense of self, but is actually incredibly true, guess who's lost? The person who does that. If somebody challenges the audience, like imagine, like, it's gonna, yeah. If somebody engages in all these fallacies and convinces the audience that they're right, who won the debate? The person who engaged in all the fallacies, because it's all in service to winning. It's not tied to the truth. It's tied to winning. So that could be somewhere in the realm of truth, but it could also be in the realm of fallacy, and the people that decide that is the audience. Now, we all know, and we all know, and I'm just going to make this broad statement because this is a generalization, is that the majority of people are unwise. Okay, I didn't make that up. We just know that. There's varying degrees of wisdom. There's a predisposition of wisdom. There's people that are incredibly wise, and there are people that are incredibly not, and there's a whole lot of people in the middle. Now, just because something's in the middle does not mean that's the best, right? You know? The difference between a saint and an axe murderer and the person in the middle is not exactly the greatest comparison we could be drawing, right? And, okay, so if the audience decides, so if there's a chance that the audience is incredibly unwise, it doesn't matter how wise or how good the arguments are, if the person decides, like a football team, that this team is right all the time, or this guy is right because I agree with him, or this guy, they don't care about the ideas, they just care about whoever scores the most punchlines and gets the most at the end of it. Okay? Doesn't matter if anything that the debates guy says is intelligent, doesn't matter if he or she can actually turn it into something tangible, doesn't matter. Whoever wins, wins. And that's what they're doing. Now, if we accept that for what it is, we can appreciate the skill set that they developed of getting the win. We appreciate people who are highly successful in basketball for shooting hoops and being a team player to help others score hoops or protect the ball so that the other team doesn't score as many. And people pay money to see that. That's great. But let's not confuse that for truth or finding wisdom, which is dialectic. Okay, just because somebody's engaging in a debate doesn't mean they're finding truth. Doesn't mean that they're giving us truth. Doesn't mean that the things that they're saying are actually valuable for us or actually pertain anything to us or actually get us to the things that we want in life. They could be debating on whether cats or dogs are better. Who cares? How does this help our lives? How does this help? And then we'd be able to ask that question in a dialectic, but if we ask those questions in the debate, it wouldn't fly. Okay. So the difference, to sum it all up, dialectic is the pursuit of truth in which we want to engage in, one-on-one, or in a group where people are trying to pursue truth, people are trying to find things that are better, and we present it in a way like we're helping, or we're pursuing others, and we need their assistance. We need their models of communication. Like, imagine, let's just say we're engaging in a dialectic, and somebody makes an argument from authority. They're like, I'm an authority, therefore I'm right, and this will happen. Okay. Then it ends up happening, and it ends up happening consistently. So we look at that, we're like, okay, well, it might not be because of your authority, it's because of the things that you know. So what's the model of your decision-making that you were able to come up with all this information and put it in a way that you were able to draw that conclusion consistently and be correct more often than not? What's the model? And then they're like, well, the model's this. Perfect. You would find that in a dialectic. You would get to that essence. You would get to that absolute subjective principle. Now, a subject is, if we think of the subject of knowledge and a little piece of knowledge like an object of knowledge, well, the object has to be a part of the subject, and the object cannot refute the subject. That's why we can take a whole bunch of principles or information, make something, make a model of the world, but then when some other piece of information contradicts it, doesn't refute the subject, it just means that we didn't have as many bits of information to actually make an accurate model of the absolute principle. Okay, now that was a lot of talking. That might be not particularly useful, but we can get to that point in a dialectic. Now, in a debate, if we ask these questions, chances are if they shared it with us and we got closer and closer and closer, that wouldn't be good for their argument, and chances are they'd probably talk past us. Especially since it's more adversarial. It's like, you are my enemy, or I'm that guy's enemy or that girl's enemy, because it's all about, it's win-lose, right? If I win, the other person loses. If the other person wins, I lose, right? The people that judge Socrates won because they killed him. Not because Socrates' arguments were so good or their arguments were so good. It was all based on what they wanted, and the criteria was winning. Or getting Socrates to capitulate, which he didn't do. Okay. So, you know, engaging in dialectic is how we find truth. But when we look at debates, we can find truth in debates sometimes. But the one that supersedes all is dialectic. That one's the one where we're going to find the most value. That's the one that's going to give us the core principles, the core ideas that's going to help us live a better life. And, you know, when we take everything back and we take a step back and we look at everything, like everything, that's the only one that really matters. That's the only one. If we know what makes things better relationships, we can have a debate on it. But really we want, you know, some better ideas. And especially if we're looking a way to have better relationships with the people we care about, and we find it, it feels great. Because now it's not due to our ignorance that we fail. And because we have what we need in order to succeed, we do it. And it feels great. And it's awesome. And it's like, oh, now I can be this. Now I can be a bigger total of the potential. Because, you know, when people say their highest self, really what they're saying is the total self. Right? They have all these elements that they are at the moment, and they have all these things that are not quite realized, and what they're doing is they're trying to expand it. They're trying to integrate the shadow and integrate the higher principles of what they want. You know, whether that be money, or better relationships, or better satisfaction, happiness, that kind of stuff. So this is kind of like an all-around video, but the difference between dialectic and debate. So hope you enjoyed.